Hi, in this MuseumIndex Plus video I'm going to look at using a Thesaurus, both as a searching aid and as a means of controlling terms used when cataloguing your objects. So to start, I'm just going to go back to a record I was looking at previously, which is this guitar. So in amongst the catalogue information for this guitar, we have the materials that it's made of, a list of controlled terms. And each of these terms, if I right-click on one of them and pick Locate, is linked into a thesaurus. So Locate shows me where that term appears in the thesaurus. Rosewood here is, if we scroll up a little bit, is a type of hardwood, which in turn is a type of wood. I should explain probably these terms here in angle brackets. They're called guide terms and they're part of a thesaurus, so they're not actual materials, but they help to categorize the thesaurus. We can pick another term here, so let's just have a look at one more. Let's pick ivory and again locate that term, and again you can see where that sits within the thesaurus. One of the beauties of using thesaurus-controlled terms when you're cataloguing is it becomes a very powerful searching aid. So ivory sits below dentin. I can double-click dentin and find all my objects made of dentin, and I still find this guitar. Or I can go further up and say everything made any kind of bone, and again I still find my guitar, because if we just remind ourselves, scroll down here, this guitar has ivory in it, and ivory, as we've seen, is ultimately a kind of bone. So what I'm going to do to illustrate how you'd use the thesaurus terms is just edit this record and add a new material. So I'll click on the description section there to open it up for editing. And we scroll down to our materials, which are here. So we currently have rosewood, ivory, pine and tortoiseshell. You can see each material. There's also some additional qualifying fields from the spectrum standard here. I'm going to leave those blank for now and just focus on the material itself. So what we'll do, we'll add a new material, and I'm going to add some steel. So I'm supposing that there are steel strings on this guitar. So I can type in steel. I can click this drop-down button, and that will show me again the thesaurus and show me where the term I picked sits within the thesaurus. That can be useful to make sure that it's the term you think, it's in the right place, and you can also use it to drill down further and maybe pick something more precise. But for now, I'm just going to stick with steel, and we'll save that change. So now in the materials for this record, let's just anchor that up to the top here. In the materials for this record, you now see I've added steel, and I can click and locate that. I can now do a search for any object made of any kind of iron alloy, for example. Double click on iron alloy and my guitar still comes up. Or indeed, if I search for anything made of any kind of metal, there's my guitar. What we'll do, I'm just going to bring this Thesaurus Manager back up again and show you some of the other things you can do within this window. So as well as being able to double click at any level to find all the objects tagged with that material, you can explore the thesaurus manually. I can just click on nodes here to expand and collapse the nodes. I can use the keyboard to navigate around, so here I'm just using the arrow keys, up and down arrow keys to move up and down, right to expand and left to collapse. With the small thesaurus, that's a perfectly reasonable way to navigate the thesaurus and find the terms you want to use. With a very large thesaurus like the AAT, which includes some 25,000 terms, I think, that becomes impractical. So we have a search facility within here. I can right click, pick find, or I could just hold down Control and press F. And if I type steel now and do a search, this is searching my thesaurus for any terms in that thesaurus with the word steel. Now, this first one that's come up, greyish-blue, you might wonder why that's turned up in a search for steel. But if I right-click on it and pick details, we have additional details for every term. So there's a description. Well, maybe I'll just come on to that in a minute. There's a list of synonyms. So in this particular instance, greyish-blue, there's a great many different synonyms for this colour. And one of those synonyms here is, actually, let's scroll down. There's a whole load more further down, I think. We have steel blue and steel blue dark. So these are just synonyms for greyish-blue, and that's why I found that. If I continue my search for steel, this next set, these terms that are in red here, these are what we call unauthorized terms. This is a configurable option in MuseumIndex Plus, but the idea with unauthorized terms is that curators, without the permission to administer the thesaurus, to maintain the thesaurus, to move things around within it, can still get on with their cataloging, and that they're allowed to add new terms, and they all go into this list of unauthorized terms, and then subsequently users more experienced with maintaining a thesaurus can look at these terms and decide where they belong within the thesaurus. So let's just continue looking. So there's steel, so I can find that by searching. I should also point out that you can use more than one thesaurus within the database. In this instance, this is the Victoria and Albert Museum's database. They're using the AAT for quite a lot of the fields that they catalogue with, but they are also using a geographic place thesaurus to control things like the production place field. They have a location thesaurus, which is basically a thesaurus of sites and rooms, which they use to control the location of the object. There's a status thesaurus, which is to do with procedures and workflow. I won't go into that. Let's go back to our steel again. The other thing that you can do within this Thesaurus Manager pop-up, assuming you have the right privilege, is to add new terms. So what I'm going to do now is invent a new type of steel. The AAT is fairly complete, so I doubt if anything real that I can think of won't already be in here. But what I'll do is I'll create a new entry below here, and we'll call it, let's call it black steel. So I can just type that in, press return, and that term is now in the thesaurus. I can move it around, so if I decide that black steel is perhaps a special type of carbon steel, I can just drag and drop that to here, and pick move below. That moves that down into carbon steel. I might even decide that it's a special type of high carbon steel and move it under here. And again, I'm just moving it deeper and deeper into the thesaurus. Let's move it back up to steel, where I originally put it. The other thing I can do here is I can add synonyms. So I'll show you two ways of doing this actually. I can just edit this record. So if I edit this record and go to the details for black steel, I could type in a synonym. So black steel might also be known as, well, following the model of the AAT, people might phrase it that way around. Steel, comma, black. So I can add that as a synonym. The other thing I can do here is give a description for my term. So I can say something like, this is actually called a scope note within the thesaurus, and it describes your terms where a description is necessary. So now I have a synonym. The other thing I can do is, if I create another term below steel, let's create something that I'm going to call dark steel. Now suppose subsequently, it's recognized that actually dark steel and black steel are the same thing. They're not different levels, they're exactly the same material by a different name. What I can do is drag dark steel onto black steel, and instead of picking move, I can pick merge. And now, if we look at the details here, dark steel has just become a synonym for my black steel. Now what I'll do is, well, edit this record again, and I'll use my new term. So let's just go down to steel, and what I'll do is change that to black steel now. Press return to link that to the thesaurus. I could even use the other term I had, steel, comma, dark. Oops, that one's not in the thesaurus. What did I call it? Steel, yeah. There we go. Save that again. So when you're cataloging, you can use any of the synonyms for a term. That can be important. You may be transcribing a written document and you want to use the same language that was used previously, even though you want to link it to a more modern term. So the system allows you to use synonyms. And as you can see, where I've done so, it's showing me the term that I typed in as a curator and also the preferred term. You can hide these in a preference if you want to. Let's just bring that back up again. By adding that term, of course, I can now find my guitar by searching for iron alloy, or indeed metal. That's still linked in there. The other thing I can do, if I go onto the search form and we search by material, I can search for black steel and find it, or I can go back to the search form, search for dark steel, and still find it. So I can use any of those synonyms or non-preferred terms when I'm searching in the thesaurus. And that concludes this brief overview of using a thesaurus within MuseumIndex Plus. Thank you.